This is Department of English, Government Postgraduate College, Attak, and I am Shahriyar Khan, Assistant Professor of English. Um, Today we would start our textbook, a selection of modern prose, and it is the only textbook which that is included in your fourth year syllabus. And I would be the one who would be teaching you the text of this book, and Sir Qayyum Khattak would be teaching you the grammatical portion, and 3 days for 3 days we will be having this discussion on the textbook, and the 3 days you will be having your classes with Sir Qayyum Khattak uh, that would be related with grammar. So let us begin our first lecture, and we would start with our of the book. Uh, the title of the chapter is The Damned Human Race. The damned mean the cursed, and race, it is here used in the sense of generation. So the damned human race is the cursed human generation. Uh, it was this essay. It is. It was written by an American writer whose real name was Samuel Longhorn Clemens, but he is uh, famous by the name of Mark Twain. This was basically his pen name. A pen name is usually a name which is selected by a writer uh, for his writings. Means for his writings, he or she would use that pen name, but their real name would be different. In this case, Samuel Longhorn Clemens was the real name, and Mark Twain was the pen name of this writer. He was born in 1835 in America and died in 1910. Uh, One of the very important American writers. He was also a humorist who write funny essays or novels or short stories or whatever. He is famous for his two very important novels, The Adventure of Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. These are the two novels that he wrote, and they are considered very important in the history of American literature. Before we come to the chapter, let us define some terms first. The first term is, we can use three terms in relation with this essay. First is the humor, the second is style, and the third is sarcasm. Now, humor is when uh, a writer writes something that is funny, and the reader who is reading that essay or short story or whatever, he enjoys it and starts to laugh. Such kind of writing would be called a humorous writing. Usually, humorous writings are not an attack on somebody. The humorous writers, they would just create a funny situation, and that funny situation would not be a kind of criticism on somebody. It would not be an kind of personal or character attack on somebody, and people would just look at that person, or that character which is created in that writing, or the sentences that he has written, and they would simply laugh. For example, you might have seen the movies of Mr. Beans. They just make you laugh without being an attack on somebody. The second stage in this category is that of style. Now, style is something which can be humorous, but the purpose of style is to make fun of somebody. For example, um, there is a person, let us suppose a politician, and that politician is he has some flaws, some uh, you can say bad qualities in his character, and somebody writes an essay or makes a skit of him in which he is presented uh, in a in a very, you can say, bad way, and in this way uh, that particular writing would be an attack on the personality of that person. This would what we call stire, and in Urdu it is called tanz. Humor is mazah, and in stire is tanz. Now, stire, it is something which is always a kind of attack on somebody. So, stire has a purpose too. Stire has the purpose to reform. To reform mean that when you attack somebody, the purpose of the writer is that he wants to point out the flaws, or you can say the demerits of that person, in the personality of that person, and the purpose is that that person should reform himself or herself, and they should see that how they have a kind of bad qualities in their personality, and they should try to rectify or correct those bad qualities. The third stage is that of sarcasm. Sarcasm is an extreme kind of style. It is very bitter, and it becomes so serious and so you can say sharp that people usually do not laugh at sarcasm. It is an attack, but it is a very bitter kind of attack, a very sharp kind of attack. In some cases it becomes it is not humorous, but means it is never humorous, but it sometimes it becomes kind of tragic. So um, in this essay we see that um, the essay is basically not humorous, it is satirical essay. The writer has made fun of human beings and human race and their bad qualities, that how they have very you can say what kind of personality flaws the human race as a human beings we have, and how in the history of the world we have done some very bad kind of things, a very evil kind of things, and at some points the writer also becomes sarcastic. Sarcastic means he uses sarcasm. He becomes so serious that his attack now becomes so hysterical that it almost becomes unbearable, and this is what we call the last stage, which is called sarcasm. um, Now, what is the main focus of this essay? uh, let us have its introduction, that what is the main topic of this essay that we are going to study and discuss. You might have heard of Darwin, Charles Darwin, the 19th century naturalist, who wrote a book called um, The Origin of Species. And in that book, Darwin claimed that um, all the creatures or all the organisms that exist in this world, they came into being through a process of evolution. Now, evolution is the process of gradual change. The theory of Darwin, it was its basic premise or basic idea was that millions of years ago on this earth, life started in form of simple organisms, simple living beings, uh, unicellular, that is consisting of just one cell, and then that cell, it only has this quality that it can it could divide itself, split itself into two, and in this way it can create another cell like it. So according to Darwin, what happened that life started in this way with a uni cell or with a single cell, and that cell, it would later on, after thousands of years maybe, that cell, it was transformed into something else. It became multicellular. It it created a kind of organism which consisted of two or more cells, and in this way, over a course of millions of years, uh, this process continued, and more complex organisms, they came into being. From the, you can say, the life might have started in water, in the sea, in the rivers, and from there, from the unicellular and very simple organisms, complex organisms, they came into being. Life was transformed into very complex kind of creatures, like you can say insects and fish, and then ultimately it ended at human beings, and human beings are at, up till now, the last evolved stage of creation. Now this theory, as you know, was bitterly criticized by religious scholars, that because we already know that it was God who created man, and so this theory is very controversial, as you know about that. You might have read about that too in the in your school books. Here, our concern is basically not with that theory, whether we would not be discussing Darwin here. It is just that through this writer, Mark Twain, he has simply used that theory. That in that theory, Darwin has said that man is the highest animal, and uh, the other animals, they are the lower animals. And in this way, in this, if you look at, you can say, this picture, you will be able to see that this life started like this, for example, in cells, and then it grew into some complex organism, and then more complex, and then more complex, and the process, it continued, and then it ended at man, the human beings. This was the theory of Darwin. But the writer, Mark Twain. He, because he is writing a kind of essay in which he wants to attack humanity. He wants to make human beings realize that what kind of things they have done in history, and what kind of cruelties and bad kind of deeds they have done in the past. So what he said, that he says that in this essay, he says that basically man, it is not the ascent of man from the higher animals that I want to talk about. Ascent mean rise, that man has not risen from the lower animals. Mean the process did not start here and then it continued through millions of years and ended here. But he says that actually this process should be looked from the opposite angle, that man is the lowest animal and the other animals are the higher animals. And he says that he would prove that man is not the highest animal, but man is the lowest animal. And therefore, he has named his theory Descent of Man from the Higher Animals. Descent means the fall, coming down. So man has come down from the higher animals. Initially, he was good, but now he is bad. He is the one who should be criticized. He is the one who has done very bad things in this world. So he has used Darwin's concept to criticize human beings, that what they have done in history, and things like that. and we will see that in this essay how he quotes different examples from history of man's cruelty towards other man, man's cruelty towards animals, man's cruelty towards this world, and to prove his point. But, I have used a scientific method to prove his theory. As you are science students, you might have studied about scientific method, what it means, and what are the steps that scientists take to prove their theories. For example, if you look at this table, you will see that how a scientist, how a scientist, when he wants to prove a theory, what kind of steps he would take. First, they would ask a question: is there a problem? What kind of problem that we want to answer? Second, construct a hypothesis. Hypothesis mean a kind of supposition. They suppose that this is so. Let us suppose that the question is whether water boils at 100 centigrades or not, and they would construct a hypothesis. They would say that yes, water boils at 100 centigrade. Now they would test that hypothesis with experiments. I mean, they would perform experiments, like in this case they would heat water up till 100 centigrades, and they would see that whether their hypothesis that water boils at 100 centigrade, whether it was true or not. Then they would analyze the results, gather the data, and at the end, if their tests they are you can say they confirm their hypothesis, they would say that yes, water boils at 100 centigrade. And if their tests they do not support their hypothesis, they would reject their initial supposition, and in this way their results would be totally based upon tests. So here Mark Twain, he also claims that he is not simply saying that man is the lowest animal. This was his hypothesis that man is the lowest animal, and in order to prove means that man is really uh, lowest animal, he had conducted different experiments. Um, we cannot say that he actually committed those he conducted those experiments, but because he just wanted to prove his point, so he is just saying that he used scientific method. And we will see that what kind of arguments or what kind of evidence that he presents in this essay. It is very interesting, is the way he uh, performs different, the way he presents different evidence and proofs. So when we would go through the text, we will see that how what kind of arguments he brings, what kind of points that he makes in order to make his point. This was our first lecture. It was an introduction to the first essay in your textbook, The Damned Human Race. And in our next lecture, we will start with the text and see that why, according to Mark Twain, man is the lowest animal. Up till then, take care.